Kari, you'll have an opportunity to tell us your background and stuff, right?
Yes.
All right, there we go. Hey, we're live on Facebook, live on Clubhouse, recording on Zoom. So if you're a VIP and you're in Zoom. All right, good morning, everybody. It's Mike with My Core Intentions, and we're bringing you this morning, Saturday morning Unplugged. Hey, this is the #1 radio show on Saturday morning. And my guess is it's probably the only radio show, right, Carl?
Yeah, right.
Hey, this is where we're going to dive into some live unscripted conversation about real estate this morning, about multifamily real estate. You know, what we're going to really get a chance to talk about is a transition between single family into multifamily, which will be a great conversation today. Hey, today's show is brought to you by My Core Intentions and your Focus Guide. Make sure that you go to our websites and you like us, you love us, you add us to your following, subscribe to us, YouTube, and on all the social media platforms. Hey, we're glad you're here this morning. And let me just say good morning to Larry and Trevor and Alessandra and everybody else that's here that I haven't mentioned yet, and we'll catch up with you later. So if you have any questions, make sure that you drop them in the chat. If we can get them answered for you, we certainly will. I'm excited today about our guest. Our guest is Kari Lyke. We'll introduce her in a minute. But listen, go wake somebody up right now. I know that we're just starting to get everybody up. So go wake somebody up. Tell them we're live. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Clubhouse. Yes, Clubhouse. Can you guys even believe this new app? It's crazy. It's off the chain, though, that's for sure. Hey, Carl, good morning.
How are you, Mike? And when are we going to invent one of these things? You know, I keep seeing these things come up. It's like.
Listen, the other night, I'll just tell this quick story. The other night, it's 8:30. I'm trying to go to bed. I'm sitting down on the end of the bed. It's 11:30 before I turn the light out. I go, God, why didn't Carl and I think of this? Anyhow, hey, good morning, Kari. How are you?
I'm good, you guys. How are you?
Good. Hey, I'm really excited about you being here today. I know that you've got a lot we're going to talk about. I think that, you know, before the show, we just kind of chatted about a couple of things. We're going to talk about life and life balance between running a household and being a leader and running a business and a company. And Kari, why don't you let the listeners know all about you, tell them your backstory, and bring us up to speed.
Yeah. So, hey guys, my name is Kari Lyke. I am outside of Orlando. So we invest in the Central Florida area. I started investing in real estate about 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. You know, it's funny because I started educating myself probably 9 years ago. So it's a little bit fuzzy on when I started, but it took me a whole year, almost a year and a half to do my first deal. I was paralyzed by fear in so many ways. We were starting a young family. I was trying to replace my income, which at that time I was in a medical profession in the corporate setting. And so I started out in the single family world. I started out with not a lot of money, not a lot of credit. So I was forced to acquire properties without credit, without cash, without going to banks because I couldn't get a bank loan. And we started flipping. We started flipping houses is how we first got started. And as we got capital into our bank account and as I replaced my income as in 6-month period of time, working a fourth of the hours I was working in my medical profession. And I was doing it with a baby on my hip. I was a new mom. So he got to come and, you know, he built the business with me, really, my 8-year-old. Hopefully one day he'll build the business further with me. And after I replaced my income, I didn't want to stop there. And really it turned into a full-time business, a family business. Our 17-year-old works in our business. My husband helps in the business. And we've, you know, now got a portfolio of rentals, some storage, short-term rentals, Airbnbs, and still flip, still wholesale, but we're really this year turning into increasing our passive income with bigger deals, bigger units.
Great. Hey, talk about the Airbnb for a minute. How is that business? How's that working out for you?
Yeah.
Tell us about that, your model around that a little bit.
Well, first off, the Airbnb model is fascinating. I actually got to meet the founders of Airbnb at a Tony Robbins event. They came
Wow.
to Business Mastery and they were one of the speakers at Business Mastery. And so I got to hear their whole how they got started, which is a crazy story. And Airbnb stands for it's really, they were renting out rooms for people to sleep on air mattresses. That's how air came about. And then the B&B was, we'll also provide them breakfast. And it was this need that they saw when this big event came into town, and they had lots of fits and starts with the Airbnb model. And it grew into this amazing model, right? And so many investors now are going that route. We, as a family of 5, we constantly, when we're traveling, we stay in Airbnbs. It's just way more convenient for us to stay in an Airbnb with 2 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms, and a kitchen than it is to stay in a hotel. So I accidentally fell into the Airbnb model when we were flipping a house by the beach. And this is the very first time I didn't interview a new contractor. I have a very involved vetting process when it comes to any team members that we bring on. I hadn't needed a contractor for years, but my contractor that is part of our family that, has worked for us for a long time, he couldn't take on this project. It was a bigger project. So we had to find a contractor, and I found this contractor through a referral. And I said, okay, well, he was referred to me. I don't need to interview him and run him through the questions, right? So this is the first time I ever had to fire a contractor 7 years in. And this is the first time I had to fire this particular contractor. And God, we ran into so many issues, delays with the permitting, problems with the contractor. My subcontractors were telling me, Kari, I do not want to work with this contractor. You need to fire him. And I'm like, but I'm going to lose so much money. And it just kept going and going. And when we went to go flip it, we were going to lose money on this deal. We were probably going to lose like $20,000. And I have never lost money on a deal. And I'm like, I am not doing it on this deal. So we said, okay, what can we do? What can we do here? And so we restructured the financing. We took some of the financing and we moved it over to a rental so we could create some equity in this property. And I said, this could be a great Airbnb. And we looked at the regulations and the restrictions there, and there weren't too many. And I looked at what we could be getting on a nightly basis. And I said, let's try this. Let's just try to turn it into an Airbnb. And if it doesn't work, in a year or 2, we'll sell it and we'll recoup our money back. Well, we've had this house has been nonstop rented from the time we started. It's been a year and a half now. And I've learned a lot from that. And since then, we've turned another property into an Airbnb. We're about to turn another one into an Airbnb. And we went from, this property could have probably made $300 or $400 a month passive income. We're making $1,500 to $2,000 a month
On Airbnb.
Airbnb.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
Is that a single family home, or where is that in the Orlando
home?
area?
It's a 3-1. It's a 3-1, no garage. We converted it. Used to be a 2-1. We converted it to a 3. Walking distance to the beach. People love it. We're super host. I just never thought it would be so profitable. And so, like I said, it was just an accidental thing. I didn't know anything about Airbnb. It was kind of our last. I'm like, the only way we're going to make this work is if we can recoup some of our money back. And it's going to take a long time to do that with a long-term rental.
What's a superhost?
Superhost is a status that you get with Airbnb that says, you have so many 5-star reviews, you have so many bookings, and every year they do an annual audit to maintain your superhost status. But as a traveler, I always look for superhosts because I know their experience and that they have, they're probably going to have a good place for a family of 5, what we're looking for, right? That they have a good place, right? Because they're superhost.
So talk a little bit, if you would, about the vetting process. How you said you had to go vet a new contractor. And let me do this really quick. Let me just say hi to some people that are jumping on and online. Hey, Scott, good morning. Michael Blaze, good morning. Dan, Glad you guys are here, Aaliyah. You know, if you guys are here and you haven't gone and woken somebody up yet, go wake them up. Let them know that Crazy Mike and Carl are on the radio this morning and that they should join us. But grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy this ride because it'll be crazy. And if you are in the car and you want to just listen to us, we are live on Clubhouse. Carrie, I almost should ping you and bring you up on stage and you could clock some time.
Yeah, I can get on Clubhouse. I just don't know if it'll echo. The audio is always what I struggle with when I'm doing live stream and
I don't seem to have a problem.
okay, we can try it.
Let me see if I can find you. Go ahead. So if you want to talk about the vetting process.
Yeah, so like I said, when I first started out, I think I got lucky. I found a contractor who I'm still good friends with. I was flipping houses in Georgia at the time. And the very first contractor I met was at a property we were looking at. It was a wholesale deal, and the wholesaler had brought a couple of contractors out to bid it. And I didn't end up purchasing that property, but I purchased another that came from my direct mail marketing. And so I contacted this particular contractor. There was no vetting process. I was like, you know what? You're my guy. I just have a good feeling about you. And I got lucky because he did a couple of different properties for us. Him and I have wholesale deals together where I'm in Rhode Island. He's in Georgia. He helped me out with it. We split the profit. We did a couple of those a few times. And we still keep in contact today. When I moved back to Florida, I needed to find a new contractor. And that's when I got a little bit more, I got a little bit more buttoned up with my operations, right? And so we interviewed a couple different contractors, and then I chose Eddie, who has now been with us for 6 years. He's part of our family almost. All my subcontractors have been with us for years now. But like I said, I went to this other, we acquired this other property. They just couldn't do it. I needed someone who could pull permits and things like that. And so I hired this contractor. So my vetting process, I go through a long list of interview questions because I want to know, one of the things that we ran into with this particular contractor, he didn't have any money. There were some days he didn't show up to the job site because he didn't have gas money. And I was like, we just gave you money. What do you mean you don't have gas money? And then he was asking for draws when it wasn't part of the draw schedule. And I was like, something's going on here, right? And he was getting in arguments. He was doing work that was messing up my subcontractors' work. And that's when they were like, Kari, this guy has got to go. I remember my electrician, he was so angry. And I had to bring him a Starbucks gift card because I was like, I'm so sorry, because he created more work for him. And I was just trying to make everyone happy because I just wanted to get done with this deal. And I was like, I'm never going to use this contractor again. And, the motto that you need to hire slowly, fire quickly, I did not follow. I hired quickly and I fired slowly. And that's not what you want to do when you have a problem on your hands, especially if it's a contractor.
I can totally relate to this. Before I went in the real estate business, I was in the construction business. And anytime I was ever pouring concrete, if I had to pour concrete in the morning before payday, I never would pay them. I would tell them that they had to come the next day because otherwise I'd be pulling them out of the tavern in the morning to come. The concrete trucks here and these guys are hungover coming out of the tavern. So it's crazy. It's a crazy business sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
and that's why you got to button it up, right? You got to button up your operations. You got to make sure you're hiring the right people for the right jobs because it can cost you so much money and so much time and so much headaches. And so, now I go through this list of interview questions for I have interview questions for title companies, for contractors, for attorneys. Now, I don't use them a lot now because we have our established power team, but anyone who's ever getting started, you've got to interview. Right. And you've got to take your time hiring the right people.
You bring up a good point, a couple of things while you're talking. It's just, mindset, right? Because that's, I'm a huge, I talk about it all the time. You can have the best system, the best property, the best market, the best contractors, you can have everything. But if they don't have the right mindset, right? And that's such a big thing. And then having a system, where it's an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure, right? On the front end, you create that system once. It
Yeah.
works. And then you just, every time you plug your new potential team members into that system. Or it might be Airbnb, when you're vetting somebody that's going to spend a weekend at your house, right?
Yeah.
Or a new partner on a project. So
Yeah.
I think that's really important, mindset and having good systems.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, the red flags on this one should have been when he gave me his estimate as a chicken scratch on a legal pad. That's number one.
Kari, you're reading my book. In my book, I say, don't ever take any numbers written on a cocktail napkin. They don't work.
And again, I said, well, he was referred. Maybe he's just trying to do this real quick for me. And number two, don't be lured in by cheap prices. Because as soon as I saw his prices, I was like, ooh, cheap contractor. This is great.
Yeah, my grandfather used to say there's a difference between cheap and inexpensive, right?
Yes.
So that's awesome.
Yeah,
So do you guys also have multifamily, or what's your tell us a little bit about your portfolio? Because a lot of the people that listen, Kari, they don't have 8 or 9 years experience, and a lot of them are, like you were professional, and like I was too. I was a banker, and I saw all these people that I was financing these multifamily all over Chicago and the Midwest. And I said, I'm missing the boat here, right? So there's a lot of people, that are, they may be a CFO, or they may be a salesperson, or like you in the medical field. Last week we had Sophie, right? Mike, she's a doctor.
Right.
Her and her husband are now buying property. So tell us a little bit about your portfolio, and for those that aren't quite as experienced as you are.
So I have mostly single family, but we do have a couple of multi-units. So the first multi-unit, again, it kind of happened by accident. My parents, so my first experience with real estate investing, seeing it, was my parents bought this 3-unit home in Newport, Rhode Island, I think that house was built in 1915. If you know anything about Newport, Rhode Island, it's very, very old. I grew up on Aquidneck Island. So I'm very familiar with the area. In 2006, they bought that property. And you know what happens after that, right? They bought it at the top of the market with a realtor, with this loan. I don't know what kind of loan they got into. And then 2008 happened. And for a little while, they had a hard time renting it. It was way upside down. They did some kind of modification on the loan. Well, when I got into real estate, a couple of years later, that loan modification was coming due. They were going to be upside down again. They, I don't know if they approached me or I approached them, but it was a situation where they were going to be losing money. And they thought of this house as a retirement house for them. And I said, okay, why don't I come in to this deal, right? Why don't I'll be a part of this property. We're going to restructure the financing. We ended up getting a private loan, a family member, the money was just sitting there. It was going to be inherited money eventually anyways. So we took out the bank loan. We structured it with private financing, which, they had never thought of before. We fixed up, we put some cash in to fix up some of their units. So we helped fix up their units. We got the rents up. And now I'm 1/3 owner of that property. It's doing really well now. Now we're talking about possibly converting that to Airbnb. So we're analyzing the areas, rules, restrictions, all that good stuff. So I kind of accidentally fell into that just because they needed help. I saw potential. And now we're talking about, well, this house is going to be free and clear in 10 years, tons of equity, lots of rental income from it. Now, how can we better leverage that? So that was my first multi-unit. My second multi-unit came from a direct mail marketing letter. The guy called me. He said, I used to send letters out this all the time. He was a seasoned investor. He goes, what you're doing is great. I love what you're doing. Sent me this letter. He had a duplex with 2 big storage units. So it was a 4-unit building. We went and met him, and we got awesome owner financing terms with him. I can't off the top of my head remember the interest rate, but it's, anywhere from 3 to 4%, I think, interest rate. 7% down, I think we gave him. Plus, when we bought it, we had the county come and reassess it because what we bought it for was about $100,000 less than what the tax assessor was telling me it was. And I remember calling the tax assessor's office saying, hey, we just bought it for this. you have it assessed at this. And they said, well, you must have gotten a really good deal on that. I said, I think we got a good deal, but I'd like you to still come and see if we can reassess this thing because it's pretty high. And so they ended up knocking it down a little bit. So we had instant equity in it, very low down payment, great terms, didn't have to qualify for any financing, never had to show proof of income, tax returns, all the things that you go through with a bank lender. There was no underwriting process. This was just us and an individual putting a deal together. And the reason he sold it was because he actually built the building. He was a contractor in town. He built this building because he needed big storage units to keep his things in. As a contractor, he had a lot of equipment, a lot of materials. And so he originally built the storage units. One is like 2,100 square feet and one is 1,200 square feet. So there were these big block storage units with the commercial remote control garage doors. One even has a bathroom that he put in there. And then he built the duplex because he said, well, if I'm going to have this piece of property, at least I'll get some income from it. Well, he had no need for the storage units anymore. So it wasn't like he was people talk about how we work with motivated sellers and distressed sellers. He wasn't motivated in a sense that he needed money. He was very well off. He was still had a full-time business. It's just that he no longer had a need for this property anymore because he was building this McMansion for himself somewhere, and it had all this land, and he was building storage units on there. So now he could keep his stuff where he lived. So it worked better for him. And so he said, I just don't have a need for it anymore. And what we talked about was, well, if you sell it, you're going to have a tax hit. If we can do financing with you, we can defer the taxes. He didn't have a need for all this money. He wasn't sure what he was going to do with all this cash if he were to just sell it outright because he owned this property free and clear. And so we worked with him. We said, what kind of numbers would work for you? And so we negotiated back and forth. And now we still own that property today. The tenants have been there since we bought it. The storage units we rent out, $850 a month for one of those storage units. And it's been a tenant that's been there for 3 years. He's also a contractor. I love storage.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I got to ask you, where did you learn all this stuff? And because, from somebody from the outside looking in that never has done anything like what you just described, it seems complicated, right? It seems difficult, right? But, Mike and I and you, we've all obviously done a lot of deals. I'm curious where you learned how to do that. I mean, because that deal sounds like a great deal. And one that may sound like it's difficult to do, but I'm just curious where you picked up the ideas to do that.
Yeah. Well, number one, it's not difficult as long as you have a mentor. And that's exactly where I started. I didn't start doing deals until I got a coach and a mentor who helped me through this process, because you can learn it all day long. But, my favorite quote is, I heard from Les Brown: if information alone made us skinny, rich, and happy, we'd all be skinny, rich, and happy. Yeah. So why is the population only 10% of us skinny, rich, and happy, right?
And that's a great quote if you know Les Brown.
What's that?
That's a great quote if you know Les Brown.
I actually think it came from his mentor, he said, but and it's because there's so much information out there, right? You can get on Clubhouse, you can get on YouTube, you can get on whatever and learn all these things. And conceptually, it's actually not complicated at all.
Right.
But to actually take action and implement on it, that can be very difficult. And that was very difficult for me. That's why I didn't do my first deal for over a year. It's like I was learning and learning and learning. Conceptually, I knew how to put all this together, but actually putting it together can be really the scary part. And that's where the coach and the mentor sometimes comes in. The coach and the mentor is not, sometimes they're teaching you, but sometimes they're just pushing you, right, to do the things that you need to do. And so I had a mentor at the time who helped us through this deal. He actually even came out and took a look at this property to see what kind of potential it had, because it's it still has land that's not being used. And so eventually in the future, we might do something with that. But it was through my mentor and my coach. And putting this all together, if you really think about it, it's no different than going and getting a bank loan, only it's way easier, actually.
Right.
When you go and get a bank loan, you've got to produce tons of documentation. Now, the only bank loan I have ever gotten is on a primary residence. I have never gone to a bank for our investment properties. And it's because the underwriting on a bank loan is just like, sometimes I feel like I need to give them my blood and my DNA to get this loan, right? And then the paperwork, it's like, I don't even know what I'm signing, but I got to sign it to get the loan. The paperwork is intense. And so putting a deal together like the one I just said is actually way, way easier to put together than going in and getting a bank loan, as long as you, it really comes down to, what does the seller need? What I always reverse engineer these deals. What is it that they need to get out of this deal? And now I reverse engineer the deal to give them what they want. How much cash do they need now? Well, that's my down payment. What kind of monthly income stream would they like? Well, now that's my interest rate. What kind of term do they need this for? Like, do they need to cash out in 10 years? Well, now that's my balloon payment. Or can they go 30 years, which we've done with owner financing deals? Who's going to inherit that, right? If they're older, how can we set this up so that this income stream is inherited? Like, I'm always reverse engineering, which is how I get to the numbers. And Mike, I'm sure you guys probably do the same, right? It's just, it really depends on what the seller needs. And if I can provide that and give them that, then we create a win-win situation.
Yeah, how that creative financing works the best, right? I mean, if you can create a win-win situation, and I've said for years, if you walk away from a deal and you feel you got an upper hand on somebody, you know what? It's not a deal worth doing.
Yeah.
And so, when you can be creative and you can, it goes back to self-sacrifice or self-serving, right? Just give back. And the more you give back, it'll come back to you anyhow at some point, right?
Yep.
Hey, Kari, will you talk a little bit, it sounds like you got a lot going on. You're spinning some plates. Can you talk about that work-life balance a little bit and how that works with your family? And I know you're a housewife and kids, and so.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually just my husband and I filled something out about like how we met and then how we, where we're at today. And it's funny because at the end of it all, I said, and now here we are today, 3 kids, 2 dogs, multiple businesses, houses, right? And when I step back and think about these last 10 years, it's like, man, it's been a crazy ride. But I love it. And I can't, when people tell me they're bored, that word isn't even in my vocabulary. I can't even believe people are bored. It's like, what is that? I don't remember the last time I was bored, and I like it that way.
How about retired? I like that one too.
Yes,
like,
I get
my
that
friends,
too. When do you think you're going to be
retired? Like, what are you going to do when you retire?
Yeah. Well, I'll retire when the earth is above me and I'm below it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't have any plans for retirement. Sure. When I get older, am I going to want to slow down on things? Probably.
But by choice, right?
I don't know that I'm going to be wanting to wholesale and fix and flip my entire life, but I'm never going to stop working. And to me, I don't believe in work-life balance, because we all have the same amount of hours in a day. And if I have 10 hours here that I need to dedicate and 10 hours here that I need to dedicate, but then I have 10 hours here that I need to dedicate, there's no possible way for me to balance that, because that's 30 hours and I've only got 24, right? So for me, I take the word balance out and I replace it with integration. And I truly feel that's why I've been able to do the things that I'm able to do. When I first started out, Cameron, our 8-year-old now, came with me everywhere. He's been at more closing tables than most babies. I mean, really, it's like, if I have a closing, I had to take him. If I had to go do punch list items with a contractor, I took him. For Christmas, I got him a little toolkit. I remember one day, because he'd bring his little toolkit out, and I would keep him busy on the wall with his little plastic hammer while I went and talked to the contractors. when we go on vacation, we're constantly looking for real estate. If we need to get out and drive around because the kids are driving us crazy, we'll get in the car and we'll start driving around looking for properties. We are never just living our personal life and our business life. It's almost always integrated, but we do it in a way that we don't get burnt out from it. My husband and I will go on date night once a week, and I don't know, 90% of the talk is business and kids because that's our life, right? And I can't, sometimes we're like, let's try to think of something else we can talk about. And it's silent. Like, can only stare at each other for so long.
That's funny.
But we talk about it in a way that we get excited, right? And so I don't go into business saying, okay, this is my work day. Now I go from work to mom. Yeah, right now there's certain situations where I can't have my kids in here. But even this, my brother is homeschooling them. He said, we're going to do a science experiment because the kids keep running in and out when I'm on videos, and it was becoming distracting as they're now homeschooled. He said, we're going to build a recording studio light for you, and we're going to put it up on your office, and you just turn that on when you're on your podcast or you're doing one of these shows, and that they know not to go in there, right? So even when I'm like, okay, something's not working, how can I involve the kids? It's always integrated. So, work-life balance, I don't know that there is a balance, but you can completely integrate your life, and you can do it in a way that it's exciting and it's fun. And, I don't know if the kids will come into our business when they get older, but I know that they're growing up in the business, and I love that.
Yeah, that's so great because they see you guys having fun. I mean, it's not mom and dad come home from work and, drop the briefcase and collapse on the couch. And, so you better believe they're observing that, and I think that's awesome, that you take that attitude, and that your husband takes that attitude too, because that energizes you guys. And I'm sure that I mean, to Mike's point, balance, right? I'm sure you two balance each other out, and you guys, have your strengths and weaknesses. And, when you're having maybe not such a great day, or he's maybe not having such a great day, you pep each other up. And that's, I think that's really important, whether it's, marital partners or, business partners or whatever. I think that's really important that you have that because, and the other thing I just want to, emphasize for the people listening, if you're just getting started, you're on your own, take what Kari said, find a mentor, right? Find a coach, find a mentor. Mike and I are huge on that. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. I worked 3 years with Bob Proctor. I've worked with, I know, what I mean? I've spent lots of money, and it was well invested. So, find the right people, make sure that they're on the same page, they have the same mindset, and that they're harmonious with you, that they help you and you help them achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah, it is so important. And if, I would have a coach for every aspect of my life if I wanted to, a coach for a relationship, for parenting, for real estate. I think coaches and mentors are huge because I'm not the smartest person in the room ever. I'm always trying to be the least smartest person, right? Because if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I don't know who said that quote.
You did. You just said it.
Well, I didn't. I borrowed that from someone, but I do try to live that motto, is that if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room, which is why I love coming on to shows like this, like Mike, so much real estate experience. I've got real estate experience, but not as much as him. He's got more stories to tell than I do.
And listen, I agree with what you say, because you can't compare, right? I get on some of these rooms on Clubhouse, and I'm like, oh my God, some of the things that they have done, and I mean, just even beyond real estate, right, Kari?
Yeah.
I know there was a room the other night I was in that I was like, oh my God, people actually do that for a living? And I don't even remember what the guy was doing, but it's crazy. So I like what you say about, take on the attitude, take on the approach that you can always be learning something else from somebody else. That I'm not the smartest guy in the room. people have said to me for years, hey, how come you like real estate so much? And that's exactly why, because there's always something new to learn.
Yeah.
Just because I closed a deal this way this week doesn't mean next week I have to close the deal that same way, or that it's going to close that way. It could be totally different,
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
so that comment about taking on that approach, I just think is so critical in our lives. Uh, what can we learn? And you can only learn what you give away. So that's the other piece, right? So like you have to teach in order to make space to get more.
Yeah.
It's kind of a crazy philosophy, but it works.
Yeah. Number one, if you look at nature, nature's doing one of two things. It's growing or dying, right? If you look at a tree, it's not just standing still, it's either growing or it's dying. And I think is the same true for human beings. We are either growing or dying. And Carl, you mentioned retirement. That is where people go to die sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, a lot of times in Florida, right? A lot of times
right?
I go to Florida.
Because they think of this, oh, I finally get to slow down and relax. And what they don't realize is that is when you stop growing, you start dying. And that's when, you see people who get depressed, who start having chronic illnesses once they retire, who are like, wow, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Right. And then they hopefully start getting into other areas of growth. But, I'm always trying to grow. And that's why when people ask me, well, when are you going to retire? Never. Because to me, retirement is dying.
Yeah.
And I'm
Well,
always going to be growing.
yeah. And Bob Proctor has this great saying about it. He says, you're either creating or you're disintegrating,
Yeah.
right? You're either creating or you're disintegrating. And
Yeah.
I mean, I totally agree with you. You're not standing still. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're constantly in motion, and it starts with your mindset. I mean, it's like I said, I'm approaching 60. I have guys that, buddies of mine that I played hockey with. They're like, oh, I got another 10 years left in me. I'm like, hey, I literally tell them, don't say that around me. I don't want to hear that. I said, I'm living to be over 100 years old. That's just because I say so. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's a total mindset. And these guys are, they can't get out of their chair, and they're always complaining, aching, and you know what I mean? And, or you can take a different approach. And I think it starts with an attitude, like you just said. You're either growing or
Yeah.
you're not, or you're creating or you're disintegrating. That's just, I just believe that too. So yeah, for sure.
Well, and to add on to what Mike was saying is giving value too, is that, I didn't have a lot of value to give when I started, at least in real estate, because I didn't know a lot about real estate. But I wanted to get into the real estate world. And I knew that if I was going to step back from my job, well, there goes my income. But so I was thinking to myself, how do I get involved? Well, my mentor, my coach at the time, he needed an assistant. Now I'm graduate level medical professional, but I said, I'll be your assistant, right? I'll come and work for you part-time if that'll get me exposed to what you're doing. And now I'm providing value to you. You can provide value to me. So I would take my newborn baby at the time to his house, work in his office, doing whatever he asked me to do. And the whole time we were talking real estate. That's how I got into it, is I tried to figure out, how can I give value? There was a few people I treated. I put on the treatment table a few coaches that were like, my back's been issue. I'm like, I'll give you some free treatments if you give me some free real estate advice. I swear to God. I was treating a lot of backs. Because I just needed a way to get in. I needed a way to get in. So I was like, how can I provide value to them? And now I get to provide value in the real estate space. And so, when you provide value, it can be in so many ways. I heard about someone who was a cook, who's a chef, and he offered to do like an event where he cooked the food for him to come to the event for free, something like that. And I was like, that's genius, right? Whatever you are genius in, whatever your expertise is in, try to find a way to add value to other people to get what you want to receive in return. And it doesn't have to be real estate related.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that's one mistake people make, especially when they get started. They don't look to see what their value is, because we all have it, right? We all have value. And I talk to people all the time about, sometimes people, especially in real estate, think the only thing they can bring to the table is money, right? And there's so much more to money, right? You have social currency, right? You have intellectual currency, you have physical currency,
Yeah.
you have like you were talking about, volunteering to help with somebody, right? I mean, that's how I got to know Bob Proctor. My ex-wife, literally, before she met me, worked for him as an assistant for about 6 months, and that was how I got to meet him and got to
That's
know
very
him.
cool.
And so, that's for people that are listening that are just getting started, there's just figure out a way, right? I mean, if you have a will, you'll figure out a way. Don't get discouraged, and don't undervalue yourself, and what you can bring to the table. If you don't have money, go find deals.
Yeah.
Be a bird dog, right? If you've got money, find people that are bird dogs. If you're a contractor, you want to get out of the rat race and start buying multifamily, everybody that hires you is a potential partner or somebody you can learn from. So, keep an open mind, right? Keep your eyes open, and just tell people what you're up to, because that will make a difference. And be prepared to jump on an opportunity. If somebody says, hey, you know what, I need someone to go check out this property or whatever it may be, get your foot in the door, and then work it from there is what I would say.
The best movie that illustrates just what you said. I'm gonna have all your listeners, like, you've got to watch this movie. I watch a lot of kids movies because we've got kids, but sometimes those have the best learning lessons. We watched Finding Dory the other day, and Finding Dory is one of my top 10 because it just has such amazing lessons in it. Because Dory has this disability. She's got short-term memory loss. She loses her way all the time, but yet she always finds a way. Her motto is, there's always a way. Just keep swimming. There's always a way, to the point where Nemo and his dad start adopting the same motto because they start getting into all kinds of trouble. And Nemo goes, well, what would Dory do? And Nemo's dad is like, what would Dory do? She would analyze it, assess it, da 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 da. And Nemo was like, no, Dad, that's what you would do. What would Dory do? And he's like, what would Dory do? And that was the whole motto, is like, doesn't matter where you're at, there's all, or what kind of disabilities you have, or what kind of resources you lack or have, there's always a way, right? And it's just becoming resourceful. And our greatest resource is ourself. It's not these external resources that we're looking for. Our greatest asset is ourself. And sometimes ourself is what gets in the way, right? We are the chokehold of our business.
And that's so true what you're saying too, because a lot of times people go, oh, I don't have the resources, or I don't have enough. But if you have an inner drive and you have that fire in you and that desire to change or do something different, I think back, just this, so going back to Clubhouse for a minute, in a couple of rooms that I've been in, there were guys sleeping under bridges in boxes that now are not, and have really exceeded some levels of expectation. If you, I don't know if you know who David Goggins is, right?
Yeah, I do.
But,
yeah.
Yeah. So, here's a guy wakes up one morning, 375 pounds, hates himself, and decides he's going to go be a Navy SEAL. And look where he's at today, several years later. But, we can all do something different if we put our mind to it and believe that we can. The only time we fail is when we quit.
Yeah, that's true.
So, as long as we don't give up and we just keep going, we get there. Hey, you guys, it's like we're 45 minutes in, and this has been great. I know it's weekend, probably we all have things to do, but any Valentine's plans, Kari?
Well, now that we have kids, it's all about them. So
Yeah.
we don't go out anywhere as a couple. We do like heart pancakes in the morning. That's kind of our tradition. Right. As I make heart pancakes. I'm gonna actually go meet some friends over at Animal Kingdom. What's crazy? I've lived in Florida 18 years now. Our younger kids are 6 and 8. I have never taken them to Disney.
Wow.
And you live right around the corner.
I know, it's terrible.
I went to school in upstate New York, and a buddy of mine lived in Niagara Falls. He'd never been across the border to Niagara Falls, Canada. He was from Niagara Falls, New York. He'd never seen Niagara Falls the other side. He lived right across the
Yeah.
border.
Yeah. I feel like that mom from Bad Mom movie. So I think it's time I take them to one of the parks. So we might go meet up with some friends tomorrow.
So real quickly, I want to just give me your email because I want to type it in the chat for people if they want to get in touch with you. Is that good?
Yeah. So it's Kari. My first name is spelled Kari at theinvestorwarrior.com.
Investor Warrior. I love it. .com.
That's also our podcast show is The Investor Warrior.
Oh, The Investor Warrior.
The Investor Warrior.
And,
Okay, let me check.
and I just want to encourage everybody to, hey, go follow Kari on social media, follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter. If you're on Clubhouse, follow us there. And if you have not, and you would like to read my book, Kari mentioned it earlier, you can go download a free copy at my website, which is mycoreintentions.com/exit plan. And you download a free copy for yourself.
Yeah, it's a good book.
Oh, thank you. Any last thoughts or comments, Kari, or?
I don't know. You just got to go out and do it. Just despite the fear, despite what your inner self is telling you. Sometimes our inner self can be our biggest problem, right? Favorite quote from Tony Robbins is you've got to stand you've got to stand guard at the gate of your mind, because your mind can be a powerful tool, both destructive and creative. So in the world that we're living in today, turn off news, turn off negative things, and fill your mind with good food. Like pick up Mike's book, right? That is good food. Pick up whatever is out there that's speaking to you. Fill your mind with good food, especially in today's world, and just keep taking action towards what you truly want in your life.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Yep, for sure. Well, thank you for being here today, taking time from your family and business and spending time with us this morning. I appreciate it very much, and look forward to listening to you more and learning more from you as we go forward here. So,
well, thank you for having me on, you guys.
Yeah. Hey, Carl, what are you doing this weekend?
I am just going to hang out with the kids. My teenage daughters I'm being their limousine driver. So I'm driving them around. I kind of, I've got three, Mike, Kari, I've got three. I got a 16-year-old daughter, a 15-year-old daughter, and a 14-year-old son. So my son and I just cart the girls around, I guess. I think he's got a grand plan because, all their girlfriends get in the car too. So I think he's like, Dad, I'll ride with you. I'm like, all right, whatever,
Yeah.
How about you, Mike?
You know what? Actually, I'm kind of hanging out this weekend. Not much going on. Kids have other things happening this weekend, so I'm kind of off the hook. But I am never off the hook. I shouldn't say that. So
go to the clubhouse.
Yeah, I definitely will spend some time at the clubhouse this weekend. I might go to the clubhouse for lunch though. So. All right. Well, listen. Hey, thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for being here this morning. If you are on Facebook Live, I appreciate your support and being there. And the same thing for anybody who was on Clubhouse or heard us there. We'll be here next Saturday. We're here every week. Carl, have a great week. Kari, thank you so much again. And we'll look forward to catching up soon.
All right. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Kari.
You too.